Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of the Rewatch podcast presented by the Terrible Video Gamers Club. I'm your host, Tyler Schatz, whose watch has not ended just yet. Joining me this fine evening are Stephen Howard,
Commander of the forces of Pod,
Amanda
the one and true
Howard,
king.
Lady of Sarcasm.
Nick Castillo,
There's a beast in every man, and it stirs when you put a sword in his hand.
and last but certainly not least, Gary Delaney.
The guy who inadvertently became Dragon Barbecue.
All right, we are back together again to talk about episodes 3 and episode 4 of season 3. So jumping into episode 3, Walk of Punishment. Here's the synopsis according to IMDb. Robb and Catelyn arrive at River Run for Lord Hoster Tully's funeral. Tywin names Tyrion the new Master of Coin. Arya says goodbye to Hot Pie. The Night's Watch returns to Craster's. Brienne and Jaime are taken prisoner. So, opens, I guess, things to kind of call out here. River Run is in the opening there of the credits and stuff like that for the first time, and a couple of times afterwards, I believe. So, right away, too, we get the introduction to Catelyn's side of the family there. Lord Hoster Tully, obviously, dead in the boat there, which is Catelyn's father. Then you have Edmure Tully, which is that her brother, or is that cousin?
Her cousin, I think.
So it's a cousin.
Edmure's her brother.
That's her brother? Oh.
Yeah.
Because the guy in the boat is her dad, and that guy is also his son. So that's why I assume they're brothers.
Okay.
Siblings.
And then we get the Blackfish too, Brendan Tully there, which is Catelyn's uncle because he is the brother of Hoster Tully there. And I believe according to the family tree there, Nick, too, he's the younger one, right?
I think he's younger, yeah.
I think he has to be, otherwise he would be the Lord of River Run.
Very true, yes. And of course, you get a little bit of a kind of character interaction there. Like, you get Edmure Tully, who's kind of shown to be somewhat of a doofus because he's trying to shoot the boat to light it on fire there and misses 3 times before Brendan Tully just walks up, basically grabs the bow from him and says, "Let me do this." Fires his one shot, turns, doesn't even look to see that he hits it, and he hits it, and that's it there.
Well, I think he very much was very forceful. Like, you see that he draws, he looks at the flag, like looks at the banner, like gauges
Checking
the wind. Yeah, like, and you catch that the Edmure, like, did not do any of that. He was just trying to, like, you know, take the shot as if it was a calm day and not a moving object.
Right, and it makes you, like, at the time when I first watched the episode, I was like, oh, look, he's not near as good. As if I could hit a moving boat in wind with a flaming arrow on the first shot. But I don't know if it means that if it's made to make him look incompetent, or if it's made to make him look, he's in distress because his dad passed away, or it's both.
Well, I think that it really is a good characterization of him as a disappointment. And that's what it's going to foreshadow him being, is a disappointment to the family. Because he tries for 3 times, misses, comes up just short each time. And I think if there's characterization about Edmure, that is characterization.
I would say, on the same note, not battle ready, not battle tested. Like, the Blackfish, like, just grabs a bow and just, like, can hit his target, and the target's not that. It's probably what a person's normally 6 feet tall. Let's say it's 8 feet long boat. It's a 3 foot wide. So he just has to hit a moving target larger than a person on the move. Like, so it shouldn't be that hard. Whereas the Blackfish, old, battle tested, like, has used a bow long enough that he can hit the shot. But obviously, his nephew is not someone who has had to use a bow and had to be confident and accurate with a bow. So I don't know. I think that's the characterization that goes into a later conversation, which is just like, he's he's just a lord. He's not a battle-tested warrior.
We were introduced, and I contrasted this character of Edmure's ability with a bow with the gentleman from the Brotherhood of Banners that we met in the last episode, who could, shoot the bow straight in the air, have a conversation, be like, by the way, you need to move because this conversation is done and the arrow's coming down. And Hot Pie moves at the last second and the arrow lands right next to him. Whereas, Edmure, yeah, you all talked about it. He's not very accurate with it. And so just that there are people who are better than others. I mean, we've seen combat, but we really haven't compared people's abilities on the field. But yeah, compared to that, I really thought Edmure really showed that he was not, as all the words you guys said, battle tested, ready, or competent, maybe even.
So my one point I wanted to kind of touch on before I pass it over to someone else here is, and this is more of just like a book question here, kind of touching to the events of where we're at in the books compared to like where we're at in the show here. And I could be completely wrong about this, but I believe it was when the army landed in River Run, that's when all of the events with Jaime being released happened, isn't it? Because Catelyn goes down into the dungeon where Jaime is being held down there and talks to him, and then that's where he's eventually released from, is the dungeons of River Run, and they make it out of River Run on a boat there, basically. Am I misremembering that stuff from the book there, or?
I remember that she's in River Run before her dad dies, if I'm going correctly. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just BSing, but it's been a couple years.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'm honestly not sure. I remember an escape from River Run, but I'm pretty sure I'm thinking of one in the future.
Okay. Well, that was just what I was going to touch on this show so far, so I'm going to throw it over to Nick. What do you got for us this episode, Nick?
Right after this interaction, isn't it the part where we go and see Catelyn sitting up in the balcony or tower, or whatever, her room, watching and talking to the Blackfish a little bit? Right? That's right after this scene. I had a couple interactions there. Just, we kind of have a feeling that, or a knowing by this point, we've seen Catelyn a couple times, but she's definitely the matriarch. She looks after her children. She cares for her children. But we don't really know too much about her as a young girl or young daughter. And I thought that this really harkened back to a lot of her family ties when she was talking about her father. She had this interaction talking about the Blackfish and how, like, he hated that name originally when it was first given to him. It was meant to be a mockery. And then the Blackfish says at the end, oh, I just kind of always have been called that for so long. People have forgotten my original name. And it kind of has this banter back and forth that's lighthearted, but then it highlights this moment where she's thinking about Bran again and Rickon and where are her kids, and how sad it must be that they are past. Again, she feels in her heart that they're dead because that's the story that's been pushed down from Winterfell. But he has this comment about you have to be strong for Robb, and it's this nice familial thing that Catelyn really hasn't had for a while in this show. Like, all of the first couple episodes where she's in Winterfell with all of her family alive are nice, but like, she's just kind of been hanging out with Robb, and Robb has been, putting her in the find a suitable dungeon, he said, or whatever, for this woman after she released the Kingslayer. So it's nice to see her in a familiar setting in River Run, but then being able to be herself. There's a niceness to, hey, I'm an adult, but then also, like, when you're with older relatives, it's kind of like, I can just kind of be a kid. And do you remember what happened when I was younger? And that familiarity, I think, was something that was welcome from her, but she also feels guilt from leaving Bran and Rickon, was my takeaway there. I was curious if anyone else had any other insights in that moment.
To add on to Nick's point, like, she says, like, it's hard to believe that we're at war, like, because she's in River Run, which is, her ancestral home. Mm-hmm. And she's like, and going on to Nick's point of, like, up to this point, she's just been kind of on the road, like, in camp as Robb is going to war. Like, she hasn't been back to Winterfell in years. So a sense of home is very much, like, exciting to her because she's been living in a tent for the last, I don't know what chronologically we're at, probably a year. They've been at war.
That is more than that. Oh, you guys think it's less than that?
I was thinking it was less than that. Not like it's been, months, I think I just said, but I feel like it's been some time, probably close to a year. I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, the seasons are screwy because,
Yeah, they are.
summers and winters last for years, so.
Yeah, I bet you're right though. I bet it's getting gone to a year, just because it takes like weeks and months just to travel down the King's Road to King's Landing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They've had
Well,
time
to
to
do it
do
with an
that, go
army would be
back,
that
have a
much
few
slower.
battles.
Lots of fast traveling.
Right.
Yeah.
They unlocked fast travel after they get to the location the first time.
That was the first note I had this far in the show.
Sure, you're open. What else you got for us? The episode is yours.
Oh my goodness. One of the first notes that I had in this show, I was kind of talking to Tyler about this before we got online here. The show has the way of like, I'm supposed to be watching it and writing down notes and like critiquing things, and I do that, but the show has such great, it's very well written. In this point, don't jump down my throat, but at this point, it's so well written and the character interaction is so interesting. It became such this phenomenon because there's such rich stories. There's so much telling about these characters, especially just even in the show. I mean, obviously in the books, there's so much more because the books are always better. But just for being a television show, there's so many little nuances in who these characters are and how they know each other, and then the history of these families interacting with one another, that I find myself watching it and just enjoying it. And going back and rewatching it in this rewatch, there's all these little interactions where people come and go in the story, and you're like, that's what happened to them, or that's where they came from. So I'll jump ahead just a little bit here. I think the next part in the story was we were reintroduced with the Brotherhood of Banners at the inn on the road, and they're transporting Clegane, who they caught there, Sandor, and then also Hot Pie and Gendry and Arya, who at the end of the last episode, Clegane says, "What are you doing with the Stark bitch?" and says that everyone realizes this is Arya Stark of Winterfell. And all these little interactions and nuances about who are these new people now, who are the Brotherhood, and then like how Clegane, oh that's right, he does know who Arya is because he saw her at King's Landing. But then I had a note here about Hot Pie says goodbye, and I was like, I don't even remember like how he left this show or what happens after this. And Tyler and I were kind of bantering about what happens. Does he come back in the show? I don't remember because there's so many arcs that obviously take precedence in the story, but there's a bunch of little ones too that are just really sweet moments. And Hot Pie is so innocent in this whole War of the Five Kings and people getting beheaded. He's got, here, Ari, I made you a wolf, and she like looks back and tears in her eyes as she's leaving. It's so good, thank you. And it's just like this sweet, sweet moment. That was something that I would kind of tie in like with what you were saying, Gary, where in some parts of the world, you wouldn't even know that there's a war going on. It's just the world of Game of Thrones is so huge. There's so many nuanced stories of these characters at all levels, right? You've got Joffrey and Tywin and Tyrion and Robb, but then you've got these minute characters who aren't even a footnote in the story, like Hot Pie, who somehow are involved in this story. And I was telling Tyler, I'm surprised he was in as many episodes as he was. It's like, who is he? He's just some boy who was going to go to the wall and take the black. And here he's making Arya Stark of Winterfell teary because he says goodbye. It was just interesting to me, those little instances.
No, and I'll agree with you entirely there, because you said that you thought that might be a little bit of a controversial point, and I entirely agree with you. The ephemeral nature of these characters makes them that more interesting. Ephemeral.
Ephemeral? Ephemeral.
Ephemeral.
Ephemeral. Is that they're eternally feminine?
No, it means that it is a term that means that they are short-lasting, short-lived. They only exist for like once or a very shorter amount of time. And that is something that this show kind of introduced us to, was we were used to the concept of these characters coming into a show and it being like Aragorn or something like that, and they were there the rest of the show, the rest of the movies, the rest of the whatever it happened to be. This show, your characters might leave, and they might leave due to just having their head chopped off, or they might find a little inn by the way and start making biscuits. I mean, it's kind of nice, and it means that everyone's story feels that much more important because they might leave, they might be entirely gone, and you get invested in these characters, and these characters go. I was reading the books. I was invested in Hot Pie. I loved Hot Pie. Hot Pie was a cool dude, and I mean, yeah, Amanda's giving me a face. He wasn't the most like useful dude ever. Don't get me wrong, but he was fun to read about. It was a nice change of pace. He was just there to, I don't
He's
know,
an everyman. He's an
Yeah.
everyman of of that age of character. Like, he's a good contrast from the other two, who is a blacksmith and a lady. Like, he's just this guy.
Just there.
Blacksmith, son of a king, and lady of Winterfell, and then you have this boy. Yes, it was really nice, and then he just leaves after you expect him to die all these times. And how does he go out?
Right.
He just becomes a baker. I mean, it's almost shocking that he just becomes a baker, and I love it.
Anyway, my only comment was Hot Pie for King, and then we can go move on.
Hot Pie versus Pod.
That was what I was thinking when I was making that face, because Steven loves Podrick so much, and then he was mentioning how much he loves Hot Pie, and I was like, well, yep, I'm seeing a trend. Nothing wrong with it at all.
You know what kind of men that he's interested in? That's what you narrowed down, is what kind of men he is interested in life.
It's just interesting little trend. I was not saying anything against it. It was just a thought that formed as you were saying it.
Fanfare for the common man, Amanda. Crank it up to 12 because you apparently need to hear it.
I did think you had a good point, though. Like, there's lots of other shows out there where you'll hear some characters say, life is only precious because it ends, or the gods are jealous of us because we can die, or something like that. This show actually shows all of these characters we know by now that this show is not kidding around, and it has no problem killing off characters. And yet, it still doesn't make you still get attached to characters. You'll still value them more. So it actually demonstrates well that, yeah, even though plenty of them are going to die, you'll still get attached to them.
Yeah, I was just going to echo here basically that, it does a good job of building a world here. It gives you people who are a part of this world, whether they stick around for the full time or not. These are people who inhabit the world. They have their own stories and stuff like that, and they weave in and out of the grander story of the Song of Ice and Fire as it goes. All right.
Also, I think someone said that someone is a footnote, not even a footnote in history. And the fact is that there is this little baker's boy who is a footnote in the greatest war that the Westeros have ever seen, and that is Hot Pie.
All right. Is that everything from you then, Nick?
For right now, yeah.
All right.
If we talk about other things, I'll come back to other points.
Steven.
So I want to also touch on the time in River Run, but I have a different scene. And this is the scene between Robb and Edmure and the Black. I believe it's the Blackfish.
Yep.
Another good
There with
scene.
him. Yeah. And I had a completely different reaction watching this a second time than I had the first time. The first time I saw this and I went, yeah, Robb's so goddamn. That is true. He's so goddamn clever. He's so smart. Edmure's just this dunce that doesn't know what he's doing. All his commanders are messing up his plans. How is this ever going to work out? And it shows Robb in this really good light. The second time watching it, I'm kind of sit there thinking about it. I'm going, what sort of general or leader commanders don't know his battle plan? And he goes on to say at one point, you would have known tonight if you had just been patient. Like, you want your commander sitting out there not knowing what he's doing, just waiting for you to send him a command? Like, you don't want him to be actively thinking about what he's going to be doing?
Could this be going back to just the level of trust that anyone has in Edmure as a tactician?
No, because I don't think that you would not have put him in charge of a military assignment, which was apparently an important military assignment. Who knew? If you didn't have at least some trust in him as a commander in the field. And I think the problem is that, oh, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Go ahead.
I think the commander is, and I compare this to, and I'll draw a historical example from our world, Horatio Nelson, who was really well known for, before he went into battle, getting all the commanders, all the captains of his ships together, so they knew exactly what was going to be happening, because when the chaos of battle hits, no plan survives contact with the enemy. Rob should have, at the very least, a massive overarching strategy that his commanders should understand. Maybe they don't know the perfect technical details of what he wants to do, but they should know the general strategy. Edmure should be very well aware that Rob needs his men more than the Lannisters do. That's not something that should have waited for anything, really. That should have been said already. And I'm interested to hear your guys' takes.
I think, honestly, I had the similar thought of like, well, he's not a mind reader. You got to tell him. But the same thing, maybe this is also just like the Blackfish. He did seem to know this without being told. So maybe this is another commentary on Edmure's just not trained in war strategies or war tactics. I would think that it'd be obvious that they do need their men more than the Lannisters need theirs, because obviously the Lannisters have a lot more resources. I still can see him not knowing that the reason for stay where you are because I'm trying to draw him out here. That one I can see being
and the tactical win was for a mill. Like, I feel like the Blackfish probably knew that a mill was not worth like anyone dying for.
208.
I guess when I look at it, I see as he's a commander on the ground, and what do you want to do? You do want to score victories, because what's the only thing that's been said about Robb Stark's army is that Robb Stark can win. No one else can win. Robb Stark can win. So Edmure has a point, and I understand there. Sorry, Tyler.
Sorry, I keep interrupting you. I love that you pull up the Horatio Nelson reference. It's like comparing somebody in like today to being like, well, George Washington wouldn't have done that. Well, let's compare them to one of the greater commanders in history immediately.
George Washington.
Well, Edmure, I'm sorry, but you're no Horatio Nelson.
I was gonna make one comment there. It's something Edmure says kind of in his description of why he did what he did. He's like, there's enough glory to go around for everyone there. So you can kind of take that as basically Edmure not thinking of the larger thing. I mean, I could totally agree. Like, had Robb not shared the full battle plans with his army, yes, that is poor leadership on Robb's part there. But I mean, who knows kind of what's going on in the background? Like, are they having a hard time communicating with one another due to spies throughout the lands? Or like, you can't just send a raven to somebody because it could be intercepted by them or whatever. But still, it comes down to me, that line that Edmure said of like, there's enough glory to go around for everyone. And it's like, that's not the point of what they're trying to do, or at least at this, and I think we touched on this a lot the last time we spoke here. Like, it goes back to like, is what they're trying to do still what they're trying to do in this war, or is that priority shifted?
That's true.
And Robb does bring up again to talk about like, we're trying to go save my sisters, but I don't know if, like, again, it went back to our discussion last time too. Is like, is that still really what they're actually trying to accomplish now? You would like to believe it. I mean, the story wants you to believe it, but really, is that what they're still trying to do?
And real quick, I will say that it does seem like fighting for honor, and this was historical too. A whole bunch of people fought for honor. That was a real thing. And it does seem in this story that a lot of people are out there fighting for honor. Brienne, who is a quintessential hero of this story, is fighting for honor and for her honor. She may have fallen in love with Renly. She did not join Renly because she didn't hear about him across the lands and then go to join him. She went for honor's sake. She's not going to fight for some purpose. She's in she's from, as we will learn, islands away from here. She's not directly threatened. So I do believe that most of the characters out there are fighting for honor. Sorry.
Oh, that's a really good point. You made the comment about trying to get his sisters back. That conversation also does happen there with Edmure and Rob, because he says like we caught the two, Martin Lannister or whatever, and the other one. And it's like they're 14-year-old boys. It's like, do you think that he's gonna care if you caught his great grand nephew or whatever like that, versus if they have our sisters? And so yeah, it's interesting to see, like he said, he's fighting for glory or for honor, whereas Rob still has some semblance of, I'm trying to put my family back together.
All right. What else you got for us, Stephen?
So the second point I'll hit on in this episode is your friend and mine, Theon Greyjoy, is saved by an unknown, it was the guy he found in the
janitor.
the dungeons. The janitor. Apparently, the janitor's a freaking good archer. It's crazy how good an archer the janitor is. It's weird.
Right.
And comes out of nowhere, saves Theon. Even, people are so crazed by this janitor doing it. One of the guys even goes, "You little shit." He must be really...
He didn't say shit. He said, "You little bastard."
Ah, did he? I didn't get that. I didn't catch
He
that.
did. I was a note I had as well, Gary. He called him a bastard.
Kind of rude to call the janitor a bastard, but...
He's the secret hero of the revolution, Stephen.
You're right.
Secret hero of the revolution.
Hey, don't get too far ahead of us. We'll get to the secret hero of the revolution later. But that was him watching Theon get saved and experiencing all those emotions again, and knowing the hero of the revolution is going to save everyone. That hurt my heart to watch. It hurt so much.
I concur. Like, the omnipotence of knowing all, it hurts.
Not even going on a rewatch, this scene is much more powerful.
Right. There's all these little nuances to it. I'm surprised how he said, "Ride east. Your sister is waiting by the ships or by the sea," or something like that. And Theon, like when he's out riding on the hills, he's kind of doing like one of these movements, just like looking around. Like he doesn't know where he is, which is interesting because we don't know where he is at this point, or who he's working with, or who's out to get him. But he just seems really lost for not knowing which way is east. I feel like that's an easy kind of look at the sun type thing.
Sorry. That's literally what I was going to say, Nick, is like, he's claims to be a great Ironborn, and if you were on a ship for any percentage of time, you know that the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, or maybe in this land it rises in the north and sets in the south, or something like that.
Oh my.
Hey, this is a different world.
Which sailor
don't know
doesn't know
how it works,
right?
Clearly Gary knows that.
Hit your ship to the...
if somebody told me that, like, if I was being tortured and someone said, "You're free, ride east," I would go straight east and as fast as I could. So I don't know if he like lost his way in the area. Like there was a part of me that was wondering, was it his horse somehow? Because like the horse like give him the wrong direction, or was he fighting with it to go a different direction or something? I don't know.
Why would the horse be betraying him?
I don't know.
Also,
it seems weird. I think the leader of the revolution might, if he's that good an archer, might be able to train a horse to know what he needs to do to save people.
Also, it doesn't explain exactly how much moving around Theon did as a kid, but I feel like if you're the steward of the Lord of the North, you would maybe see some of these places in the north and be like, "Hey, I'm approximately around here. Hey, I recognize that hill or that mountain or that whatever landmark." Like,
there's a huge there's a huge. Sorry, I'm jumping in here on Gary's comment, but there's a huge mountain range in the back of that scene. At first, when that scene came up, I thought it was going to show something of like some person we didn't know out in this space. But yeah, no, it's a picture of this huge mountain range. Yeah, if you're in the north or you're thinking I got to go this way to get back home, there would be some sort of gigantic landmarks or general topography you would recognize if you're out in the wide open landscape like he appeared to be, to say, oh, I wonder if this is something, or if I know that, unless I've gone to another country completely, I know that the only real huge mountain range in the north is this, and it runs north-south. Okay, again, here, that must be east and off north-south. So, I don't know. He just seemed lost. Unreasonably so.
Anyway,
I agree.
we'll learn more about the hero of the revolution.
Yeah, the comment though, yeah, the archer kills those people quickly, so that the only thing that any of them is able to say is the last one is able to say, "You little bastard," and says so with a sense of recollection.
In a way that doesn't fit talking to just a janitor.
A janitor.
Poor janitor.
It's
Right.
sort of I feel like, without ruining everything, it's a note of realization that the
Yes.
last guy figured out who his attacker was,
Yes.
and he was very mad about the hero of the revolution.
Yeah, the hero of the revolution. I love that term, by the way. It's like the camera pulls back and we see him literally draw an arrow right at the guy's face, right, and then just without even no concern, right in his head. Yeah. So when we learn more about the hero of the revolution here, I want to come back to this scene in particular.
Oh,
the,
yes.
The connotations that we understand are dang.
Also, which house has ownership of him? Is it just somebody?
I don't know.
It's not
I don't
known.
know where he is.
Okay. Anyway, that's a good scene.
Those were my two scenes for this episode.
All right, Amanda.
Tywin's having a meeting of the small council back in King's Landing. There's
Yes.
a bit of a rush for the chairs. They all want to sit next to Tywin. Cersei ends up dragging a chair around so that she sits next to him. Tyrion takes a chair all the way to the opposite end of the table. I mean, here's a beautiful metaphors right there. What do you guys think?
I saw Tywin pulling his chair to could be the other head of the table.
So, a couple of things to note there. Cersei picks up her chair and carries it around there to sit on the other side of Tywin because she wants to be close, obviously, to the position of power. Tyrion drags his chair to make a show of, something there.
He Men in
And-
Blacks it.
And he sits across from Tywin in a show of, I am equal basically to you there. I am also at the head of the table of power basically here that we are talking. And then also too, just to call out, it's a power move by Tywin. He moves the small council meeting to just outside of his bedroom area there, so he doesn't have
Yep.
to go very far.
Makes everyone come to him.
I feel like power is a good analogy for that whole experience, because even the other small council members come in and they're like, oh, well, this is and I think it's elaborated on, these chairs are much nicer than the old small council chambers. So they're all trying to figure out where they sit because they need to know. They're still trying to read Tywin out with all this stuff. And of course, Cersei isn't going to be the 1, 2, 3, fourth person on one side of the table. She's going to move herself to be equal, right next to her dad, because I think there's been some other conversations about where Cersei sees herself and her plan and her that she feels she's an integral she's been an integral person in the forming of power. And the
She
same
puts
with
herself at his
Oh,
right
what?
hand, isn't it? So yeah, that's a good point.
And then the same with Tyrion. Tyrion has been wanting a seat of power, and instead of sitting at one end of the table, he literally drags himself as far away from his father as possible and sits down, because originally when I was watching this, he was like, oh, well, maybe he was going to move his chair all the way to sit right next to Cersei or like put himself closer in the list, but no, he put himself as far as he could away. Also, he dragged the chair because obviously he don't give no shits about like not making noise. He's making a fucking scene of it because that's who he is.
I think it's a good scene also to show that the amount of sycophancy that is going towards Tyrion or Tywin, and the lack of respect that Tyrion has for that sycophancy. Just
You said two different words there: sycophancy or syncopancy. Are you sick? Are you sick and you pant someone? You sick and you're so.
It's sycophant. Sorry, it's sycophant.
You're sick of fans? You don't
Yes,
like
I am.
ceiling fans?
I hate fans. That's what. No, there's one right up here. I'm gonna burn it. But you have all these people crowding around just to be a yes person, basically, or to get their voice heard at least first, and not going to challenge him at all. Tyrion is out there going to challenge him, make it very well known that there are two groups at this small council now: Tywin and the Sycophants, and Tyrion.
If you wanna do an analogy of the different characters at that table too, Peter Baelish, Littlefinger, sits closest as Master of Coin, trying to cuddle up to Tywin. Pycelle, trying to hold on to his power. We've seen some nuance about how he actually is with how he's interacted with Tyrion, and how he may actually be in better health than he lets on. How he sat in the middle there and still maybe more apprehensive or aware to the dangers that the small council members have. Varys sits at the very back end. So, still, isn't that it? Or is he in the middle?
It's Littlefinger, Varys, Pycelle.
Oh, interesting. But there's nuances there about who gets there first, and trying to be close or trying to still sit where you can see what's going on without maybe being as bluntly in reproach as Tyrion is. Yeah, another really good scene. Just even like in the conversations too, right? Where's my son? We're trying, my lord. Try harder. And everyone's like, yes, okay, we will. Nobody's like balking at anything he says. They're all bickering with each other. He offers the position of Master of Coin from Baelish to Tyrion, and Tyrion takes it. He seems like that's not very. He has the line, "I'm not very good at spending money. A lifetime of enormous wealth has made me only good at spending it." But all these little nuances about how they interact with each other and how they bicker and pick at each other, whereas Tywin's like, "Do your jobs, get my kid, end this war." He's got the mindset of, I want this done, do it.
He's got a lot of executive leadership on his side there. He has a lot of supreme do it power. He doesn't necessarily need to be excellent at those other people's jobs. He needs to be excellent at motivating them. And I would say that everyone in there, from what's her name all the way to Tyrion, are motivated to do their job, whether they're for or against him.
All right. Got anything else for us, Amanda?
In the same scene, yeah, you said Tyrion was appointed Master of Coin, and then isn't Littlefinger being sent off to the Vale as well?
You got it.
Go marry Lysa Arryn.
His true love.
So that Robb Stark's own aunt will be against him. I'm sure it'll be great.
Yes.
I'm sure he'll fly over there.
There's a line about titles and more titles, because there's like a rub at one point where they say someone has moved into Harrenhal, and Varys looks sort of smirkingly over at Littlefinger and goes, I guess that would make him Lord of Harrenhal, because last we heard Harrenhal was given to Littlefinger. And then also, in the same token, now if he goes to the Vale and ends up with Lysa Arryn, then he would be Lord of the Vale. And so there's all these things that Baelish's character is kind of going through, but he's garnering a lot of respect, at least in title and entitlement. Maybe not in actuality, but He's becoming a very powerful person.
Correction. Acting Lord of the Vale.
Acting Lord of the Vale, yes. I think Liza has a young son.
Speaking of commanders who don't share all their plans, though, if we go out to Daenerys, she is looking at an army of Unsullied. And at one point, when they tell her, you know, that you can't afford them. Your ship will buy 100 of these. I'll throw in more for these and this. This is all you got. She offers them a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And Varys and Selmy and Jorah like panic. She tells them, you know, I value your advice, but you can't question me in public like that, or you'll advise somebody else.
Also good leadership traits, right? Able to correct the actions of people that she don't do that again.
I'm not normally someone to congratulate Daenerys, as we have very well heard. But on this one, actually, I think she performs this very well, because she has a reason for not telling her subordinates this. She needs her subordinates to act in a certain way in front of the person selling these Unsullied to make her seem stupid, and I think it goes perfectly for that. But I also agree with what Nick said. That's what you hear. You can question me in private, but don't question me in front of the troops.
Right. I was curious, again, not trying to give anything away for the second episode we're about to discuss, but watching this episode, I was wondering, do you think she had a plan the whole time? Like, I'm going to go in and buy these. I know my ship is only worth so much. My advisors have told me so. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to offer my dragon if it comes down to it. Or I'm going to try and see what I can barter for this. Or like, again, you know, does she have a different plan in mind? And I was wondering, watching this episode, does she know that from the start, or has she just sort of become that darker version of herself to say, all right, if it comes down to it, this is what I'm willing to do? Because you can see her react to Kransis's comments as he's speaking Valyrian, and as she's there, like, she's like, a couple times I noticed little things that I guess I just never knew or didn't catch the first time. But she has like a, you know, because he's saying highly offensive, horrible things about her, as that we get reading the subtitles, and Missandei is trying to beautifully, you know, gymnastic around. So it's interesting to hear all that. But I think that there's little bits there where she might have perceived he was this type of person, but like after hearing his comments, maybe even understanding them some, that she's like, okay, I'm gonna come at this from a different angle. I don't know, what was your take on that?
Okay, so I have a completely different take that you guys were like the general not telling her lieutenants the plan is knowing a little bit of foreshadowing only like an episode ahead. Is that her intentionally weakening her hand visibly? So in this whole conversation, she like like is being questioned in front of her lieutenants, and she is trading something of a much higher value than what she's getting. Like, the lieutenants know that, the person she's like trying to deal with knows that. Like she's trading like one of 3 living dragons that exist in the world, and they're demanding the largest. So like they're demanding superiority, and all they're giving away is, you know, all of the Unsullied they have at this moment. So is it, I don't know, as I was listening to you guys, like, is this her trying to play more of the fool? Like trying to give herself a strategic advantage, or like sort of a diplomatic advantage in the negotiations? It's for some foreshadowing. Anyway, Steven.
I entirely agree with Gary. I think that she's playing high stakes poker, and I think she's playing it excellently. I think she knows what she's giving away. I think she knows what it makes her look like. She knows the people that are watching her and what those expressions are going to do to the other players at the table. And she knows that I don't know whether to say this now. I'll say it now that it's either now or next episode, and we'll be talking about it one way or another. But she's buying every defensive weapon in the city. Every defensive weapon. Every offensive weapon, too. I think, in terms of a gamble, if you're going to buy a city's entire weaponry, which, when we come down to soldiers, I mean, you need someone to carry the weapon, and these are the weapon systems. I think it's a brilliant play, and we'll see how it works. That's her buying the entire arms of a city.
I was going to say there's that interaction, too. I agree. There's this interaction after she sort of scolds Sir Barristan and Jorah, where then she's talking to Missandei and like getting to know her. Talking about the diplomatic advantage. Absolutely, this woman is, the go-between her and these people. So whatever she says to her, it sounds like she understands because she's speaking her native tongue, in the sense that it's the common English, whatever the actual definition would be in the world. But like she understands her, she knows she understands him. So yeah, taking as far as the advantage away from him, that this person can relay information to both of us, and I could say something to her that he would not catch, because clearly that's what she's perceiving he's doing with her, is just a really strong move. And so then when she tries to get to know Missandei, she asks, do you have any parents or anything like that? And Missandei said, no, they passed away. And I think she says something to the effect of like, I'm sorry. And Missandei replies with Valor Morgulis, which we learned in the previous episodes means all men must die. But to my point earlier about, do you think she already has sort of a weaving of what she's planning to do here? Daenerys in that moment replies back to Missandei with, yes, all men must die, but we're not men, are we? And smirks. And you see Missandei smirk as well to that. So it's like, she understands that this woman is a certain type of woman, or at the very least gets the reference that someone's going to die, but we're not the men who are going to die. And so maybe not like we're talking about here, like a full understanding with the commanders of what's going to unfold. Maybe that's not necessarily verbatim spelled out, but I think that they kind of have an understanding there that if this goes south, it won't be us whose blood is spilled. And that kind of foreshadows a little bit there of maybe where this next episode's going to go. Gary.
I was just going to say, like, we were talking about strategic advantages, and I kind of forgot about Missandei, because that actually is another strategic advantage when you talk about, I think you mentioned, like, the translation. Also, the party in which she represents now is no longer the slavers, and it's Daenerys. And she's a subordinate to Daenerys now because, like, she was given to Daenerys for a deal well traded at that moment. So she had already been traded. So any negotiation beyond this point, she has no allegiance to the slavers anymore. She only has allegiance to Daenerys. So that's another tool out of their toolbox, because now instead of Missandei like sort of politizing the very offensiveness of the slavers to Daenerys, now she can decide how to translate from Daenerys to the slavers in a manner which is appropriate. So anyway, that's all I had.
All right. I think we're at you, Gary. Did you have?
Oh, I didn't have a lot of notes. I couldn't remember. Is the conversation with Rob's wife in this episode?
Yes.
With the prisoners?
Yes.
Yes.
In this episode? Okay, that I thought was an interesting sort of one-off conversation where, like, obviously she's playing her role as the healer or just like a medic to these prisoners, which are Lannisters. And so she's trying to show compassion because that's who she is. and that's good for Rob's, like, if they ever go back to Lannisters, like, they were treated politely, but also at the same time, she just continues to weave this, like, mythos about Robb Stark, and she does it in such a way that's, like, so, like, oh, like, not overselling it, just being like, no, he doesn't hurt children. He just hurts his enemies. And then she turns to the guards like, unless it's a full moon. Hold on, sir. Is it a full moon?
That's
No, you're fine.
I
You're
love
fine.
it.
You're fine. Like, it's just such a fun scene. I feel like it, in the long run, it's not a huge scene, but it's just a fun little one-off scene. That's all I had for this episode.
One comment about that scene there too. One of those Lannister kids looks awfully familiar. Like he might stick around for. He might show up again in a few later episodes. I don't know for sure.
All the Lannisters look alike. It's fine.
They're all blonde kids. I was wondering that too. At first, I was like, "Is that?" But they're so.
I don't know. I you'll have to tell me after the episode because I don't recognize them.
There's I think we skipped one scene that I did have some notes on. So when everybody else is done, I guess I can go back and cover those real quick.
I've got 3 things to kind of wrap up the episode here, which I'm sure we'll probably cover what you've got there, Nick. So I'm going to throw the easy one out there so Steven can be ready for this one here. The Legend of Pod the Rod is born.
Maybe I thought about that after I didn't bring it up. I'm like, someone's got to bring this up for me. Come on.
So to just set the little backstory there, Tyrion is going to collect the books from Littlefinger's brothel there for the Master of Coins, the basically bookkeeping for the realm. And as part of that, then he takes Pod with and Bronze with him as well. As part of Pod's thank you for saving Tyrion at the Battle of Blackwater, Tyrion leaves him with 3 of Littlefinger's prostitutes there, basically. And
Lovely women of the night.
3 of the best.
3 of the best. Yes, nothing but the best. And does he? So does that all come? Oh no. It's not until next episode we find more detail out about this interaction, right?
Copious details. Yes.
I think it gets referenced in 2 different conversations without spoiling any major plot points. First is with Tyrion and Bronn, and then Varys and Ross. Yes, like, and they just seem to be like, on a rewatch, I was like, oh yeah, I thought this was just like covered once. And I thought it was so much better when it, like, I didn't ever remember that it got mentioned again with Varys and Ross. And that was...
How legends are born, my friend.
This is why Pod should be king. Pod is able to get the job done and not even take any money for it. You don't even have to give any money for him getting the job done.
All right.
Also, this is canonically, by the way, how I justify Pod. I'll get it. Later.
All right. The second scene I was going to bring up there was get a little interaction with Jon Snow and the wildlings up north of the wall there. They happen to come across what I like to call the White Walker horse circle there. As they make their way kind of south and they run across where the Night's Watch, in that area where the Night's Watch had been, and they find all of these horse body parts basically cut up and put in this weird pattern here. The Night's Watch horse put in this weird pattern there. And then they kind of discuss some of the battle plans there, and then I'm drawing a blank on his name. The King Beyond the Wall is...
Mance Rayder,
yep. He tells Tormund that it's time to climb the wall there, basically to take like 20 of his best people and climb the wall, and then to take Jon Snow with them there too. And then he mentions too, like, and wait for my signal to attack him from the backside there. And Tormund's like, what's going to be your signal? And he's like, I'm going to light the biggest fire the North has ever seen there. And it kind of ends that scene there with the people north of the wall there.
Right, that's another good one.
I have a question. Did the amount of horse parts seem slightly unrealistic? for the number of horses you saw go up north of the wall. Because this is supposed to be just the Night's Watch. But there is easily there's easily like 20 horses worth of dead bodies, and maybe they're all horse heads. I specifically saw horse heads in the beginning, but it looked like a lot of horse parts.
Gary,
It's like
are you telling
Mortal
me that
Kombat
there's...
when you do a fatality and there's just like body parts everywhere and it's not proportionate to the person who died.
Are you telling me that there's a discontinuity between the number of things that happen in one scene and a number of things that will happen in a later scene? Because
I didn't say they were on a different
Not in Game of
continent.
Thrones. I don't believe you.
All right. And then the final part to touch on is just kind of a little recap of what's happening with Mr. Jaime Lannister and Brienne of Tarth there.
Not to touch on. I got that reference.
So
Very handy reference.
the first part there I want to bring up was that Jaime kind of gives a warning to Brienne of like, this is what's going to happen to you at night. You are going to be beaten and raped there, basically, is what he says to her. Do you guys kind of see that? I kind of took that as like there's somewhat of a little bit of respect kind of growing from Jaime towards Brienne. And I'm wondering if like anyone else is kind of seeing that, or is that just Jaime being Jaime there, really?
I think, first of all, he wants to lord it over other people, that he's smarter and he understands the way the world's better. But other than that, I think there's some amount of respect. Like, she is a good swordsman, even on his level. So that's all I got.
I don't think it's so much respect as it is Jaime just being more of a personified person. He is not an absolutely evil, horrible character. He's not there to... Is this okay, go? Anyways, or Nose of the Weekend is what this is right now. Anyways.
So you better not be in the bathroom, man.
Gary is, by the way, so everyone knows, pulling a Weekend and just his camera's in front of his face, traveling around in what looks like a maze of his house right now. But anyways, it is personifying Jaime a little bit better. He's not some horrible, evil, absolutely one-faced dude. He has sympathy. He doesn't want to exactly see this happen. I'm not sure it's so much total respect for Brienne yet. I think this is just something where he's just not that bad a person. He just doesn't want to see a woman who he's been traveling with raped.
He still has honor, basically.
He still has honor.
It's hard for me to consolidate the two because just how many episodes ago he had no problem with that cousin of killing that cousin of his for the slim chance of escaping. Now someone else has them and he is acting differently. I don't know. I do think there's something.
I don't think he sees an upside to her getting hurt. I think he sees an upside for him still having a companion. So he has somebody to be in chains with that isn't his captors. And she's leverage. You could say she was also in that conversation leverage for Jaime to be a good consultant to his captors. Like, you don't need to keep me in chains. I'm a good guy. I'm just gonna roll with the punches. I'll get your reward. You'll be fine.
I think there's also a difference in Jaime's mind between straight up killing someone, which might be honorable. You can have an honorable death. You can fight to the death, and that's all fine. And besmirching someone's honor or doing torture, something that is unjustifiably bad, rape. And I think he sees death as better than torture or rape, which that's his viewpoint.
I agree. I was going to say, I don't know if it's so much as respect for her, but just not to see her suffer. Because the way he's talking to me when I saw that episode, he's already like understood this is going to happen. It's not something that you can stop or fight off. There's too many of them. They're going to take advantage of you. And so he's saying, don't fight, otherwise it will be worse, and they'll beat you in the process too. So it may be respect, but I kind of don't see it as full respect. But at least he's telling her it will hurt more if you fight back. But then he admits to her too, like, what would you do? I would make them kill me first. It's like he's honest enough to say that I would probably end up doing what you're probably going to do anyways, which is probably why he steps in and feels he has to intervene. I was going to talk about that last scene too, at the very end there, unless you had more, Tyler.
Leading kind of into the last scene there, it's Jaime then talking about trying to like spin up this story to his captors of like, hey, don't hurt Brienne. She's worth a lot of money because she's from the Isle, the Emerald Isle. There, basically, no, Sapphire. Because the Sapphire Isles, as you know, are just full of sapphires that can be traded for her release there, and her father would gladly appreciate if she came back unspoiled there. So, and then he was spinning that whole story and stuff like that, and then, to put it bluntly, things end poorly for Jaime at the end of the episode.
He rolled a 1.
He rolled that D20 way wrong there, and cost him his hand there, basically. Not just a hand, his sword hand of all things too.
His right hand.
Every time I watch that part, I'm still shocked.
It does kind of come out of nowhere. He has.
It makes a good Game of Thrones ending. It's just like
it is.
It ends on that harsh note where we don't know what's going to happen next. We just know what we just saw, and we can't even believe what we just saw.
What fades to black too, with Jaime screaming in the background still.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's this weird, I wrote down too, like the song at the end is this strange, almost rock ballad of this song that they were singing earlier walking through the forest. So it's this weird, hey, everything's kind of, harsh and whatever, and it's just like totally blindsides you. You're like, holy crap. Yeah, I wrote down, I want to give a hand to Jaime for the ending. He really reached out and grabbed that ending. It was a solid grasp in his performance. He held on tight to his motivation. He was able to keep the audience in the palm of his hand.
Oh my gosh.
Somebody stop him.
That's some pretty handy.
Yeah. Anyway.
I know. I wrote down though. It's the first time, like talking about this notion of respect for Brienne. It's the first time he's really stuck out his neck for anyone. Like even how he feels about Cersei, he's never really defended her honor or said anything to like make sure Cersei's not in trouble. It's the first time he's truly stuck his neck out for anyone, and this is what happens. So going forward, I like in the next episode we talk a little bit probably about it's totally different how his character changes and how he sees the world. I thought that was really interesting. The first time he tries to do something nice for someone else, genuinely to save their neck, this is what happens.
Okay, Steven, you had a question. My question was about the song at the end, if it was relative to the books. Did you have a question about
no, that's not about
the song. They didn't sing in there was no singing when you opened the book, Gary. I'm sorry.
Very disappointed.
I got it. What I was going to contradict Nick real quick, and I was just going to say this is the first time we've seen Jaime do this. This is also the first season where we've had an extended amount of time with Jaime, and this is the first time Jaime has been out in basically the open. Other than that, he's had one scene in a tower, one scene stabbing somebody, but it's always been one scene basically. Not an extended amount of time. This is the first time we're spending an extended amount of time with him.
Okay.
Gary, I do believe that the song is mentioned in the book. They do reference the song. I just don't remember if there's a lot of words. And I didn't know the tune till I heard it in here.
Because I noticed it when they were walking down the road. I was like, I wonder if that's like a house song. Because on a rewatch, you realize that the song they sing before the Battle of the Blackwater is the Lannister song.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't know if this was like a different house's song. Something like that. It was a fun tune.
Some of the words I noticed were like some of the words I noticed were like the bear, my fair lady, The only bear family is the Mormonts, but I don't think that's who this family is, because we've seen this group riding with the North's banners for the Flayed Man.
Yeah. Just to reference there, Gary, the Reigns of Castamere is not the song of House Lannister there.
You know, like in that episode of the Battle of the Blackwater, somebody comments back to Braun that, oh, how did you know our song? So it's maybe not their official song, but it is something that's associated with the mythos of House Lannister.
Just like the House Lannister always pays their debts. That's not their official words either.
Yes, it's about them. It's just not, they don't have an official song. No, they don't have an official flower either. Or anything else. It's their words.
And the song was The Bear and the Maiden Fair. That was sung there.
The tune is good though. I'll get it stuck in my head once in a while after watching it.
Getting into the meta again, HBO comes through with every song they do. Whether it be an opening, whether it be middle, whether it be whatever, HBO comes through.
I like the rock version at the end. It's just I'm still in shock from watching Amy lose his hand.
I'm gonna disagree with Steven. Ed Sheeran was in Game of Thrones, and that was where it went off the cliff. That's not even a spoiler. Ed Sheeran is somewhere in this fucking show, but ruined it. Ruined it.
Is it
anyway? That's all I got for this episode.
Yeah, I lost what I was gonna say.
All right. So we'll shift now over to episode 4, and now his watch is ended. According to the synopsis here, Jaime mopes over his lost hand. Cersei is growing uncomfortable with the Tyrells. The Night's Watch is growing impatient with Craster, and Daenerys buys the Unsullied. So to just kind of start off with here, we kind of pick back up with Jaime and Brienne, and he is just basically down and out and pretty rough going here pretty much for him. He's just kind of basically given up all hope there. And I'm going to kind of jump to a little conversation that he has with Brienne a little later in the episode, where Brienne basically says, hey, this is the first time you've had something happen to you. You know, you've lived a golden, cushy life all this time. Other people out here in the world have stuff happen to them all the time, and we get up and keep on moving with our lives here. You need to do the same thing too, because Jaime felt so devastated because, like I said, he lost his sword hand, and he viewed that was the big thing about him, was his ability to wield the sword and everything. So, anyone have any comments on that?
Also, at some point in the episode, he gets humiliated just to drive home the point that, like, even in the previous episode, when he had his good hand, he was just fighting Brienne. Like, he could have won that battle if his sword hand was good. Like, and instead of just taking the sword from him, that group of people just fucking humiliated him. They pushed him in the dirt multiple times. Like, they just they were just trying to break his spirits, and also sort of tell the audience that, like, he is not an escape risk anymore. Like, he might be a prisoner for a while.
I think that his body is broken and his spirit is broken, and especially going into that scene, it is he's drinking horse piss. He doesn't know it. I mean, it's a vomit-inducing scene. He is definitely broken. He obviously must have some sort of disease going on, and he doesn't want to live. I will say, and I know that this is, not as I've said it before, but when Brienne does give Jaime the pep talk, one of his things is, you're acting like a woman, or one of her things is, you're acting like a woman. Again, going back to if you're an average or normal woman, you must be bad. You have to be an extraordinary woman to be good. And you, sir, are acting like a woman, and that should be a grave insult from a woman against you. Don't really like that. I get what she's trying to do. I just don't particularly care for that type of insult or pep talk.
thought it was also interesting that like we've learned by now that our characters can die, that they have no problems killing off people, but what happens to Jamie is like so much more common. You know that you get kidnapped, you get mutilated, you get moved along. So we were expecting him to die or to survive. I don't think we were expecting this in between. Oh my God, he's lost his hand.
Interesting take. I wasn't caught, sort of caught off guard with Tyler reading the synopsis that it says Jamie mopes. You know, that's very true. Like, there's not really anything that changes other than the pep talk. His circumstances are still the same. But he's just kind of like, you know, she says, "What's wrong with you?" And he goes, "I'm dying." You know, we've seen people in this show get far worse injuries. You know, clearly he's going to live. It's his will, like Steven said, his spirit is broken. Yeah, exactly. It's interesting, like I was mentioning previously, how he seems so headstrong and so cocky, and we first are introduced with him wearing the gold cloak, and he's, you know, cocking off to Ned Stark, and here he's just completely down. I was gonna go get barbecue. Yeah, just interesting to see that complete character shift.
I had a different point when you talked about someone not being killed and not like being good and just sort of like the unexpected. And that was my new favorite friend, the hero of the revolution. Some foreshadowing. That character is not killed and survives, but shit gets fucked up. Stay tuned for the hero of the revolution story.
There's just so much about these characters that you know, we know because we've seen the show. We have the foreshadowing knowledge, but just the little nuances about how they interact with each other, like over the course of the next couple seasons. Just based off this one episode alone, I wouldn't be surprised if Jamie sort of shifted in our eyes, because we've seen him as this more dominant, overbearing, headstrong, very affluent, arrogant character who now clearly, he thinks anyways, his whole life is literally in the dirt. That his name is Mud and he's going south quick. And so it would be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised, just based off how hard a turn that is for his character right now, that we start to see him in a different light moving forward.
Okay. Tyler walked away, so who wants to take the next topic or next item?
I guess I will go ahead and start this. One of the first things that I really enjoyed here was the conversation between Varys and the Queen of Thorns.
That was so good.
Oh, it was so clever. And coming down with Varys trying to entrust the Queen of Thorns with Sansa, trying to get Sansa out of the capital, out of Joffrey's reach, and then furthermore, trying to stop Littlefinger. I mean, he's interested in Varys is interested in Sansa's safety. He is more interested in stopping Littlefinger. And the Queen of Thorns goes, "Oh, you must really hate this guy." To which Varys responds, "No, I actually quite enjoy him. The problem is that Littlefinger would be king of the Ash, or would burn down the city or burn down the country if he could be king of the Ashes." And I think that goes a lot to saying what Littlefinger is in his eyes, and maybe what Littlefinger's true character is that Littlefinger wants to be on top, and he is not against just cutting the pole down to make sure that he looks taller next to it.
Nice
Also,
metaphor.
as it varies, trying to extend his grasp of spiders, because the Queen of the Queen of Thorns.
Queen of Thorns.
Yes. She's not been in the fold, and as like obviously she wants to kind of see the roadmap of what's going on, but also varies, like, if you know the plan goes forward, having some connections with the Queen of Thorns is good for him as he moves forward. Like he's continuing to build his influence.
Sure,
So,
and I think that's and I think this actually is a different scene later on. Is that he says that influence is like a weed. If you tend it well, it will grow. And I think that he is
Patience.
definitely, yes, he definitely tends his weed there, if you want to say it like that. Uh,
He doesn't have a
he
weed to
definitely
tend.
tends to his yeah tends to his influence, but I don't think that's the purpose of this conversation. I think he has a direct purpose. That is a secondary goal. I'm not sure that is the primary goal. I think he would spend influence to keep this, to keep Littlefinger from getting on it, even if he knew that he was just burning it up.
Yeah. Amanda, you go.
I was very fascinated as Varys was talking about this while he's opening that large crate, because when I first watched that scene when he was talking to Tyrion, I was just like, I was not paying attention to what he was doing. I was listening to the words, and then as he's opening it, I was like, wow, what a beautiful timing on Tyrion's part to come talk to him just at this point. And he
Yeah.
managed to get this guy shipped to him in a crate too. All we know, it's not even the sorcerer. Maybe it's somebody else. Someone else who's annoyed Varys.
Pretty sure.
pretty sure it's his
Pretty
old
sure.
friend.
I
Also,
think it's the sorcerer who actually cut him.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what I assume, but the timing is beautiful, and it was a beautifully done scene. Like, they did it great, but Tyrion, way to not wait 10 minutes before you ask your question. You'd have been too late.
Mm-hmm.
also, I think it's definitely a. I don't know if that's even in the book, but it's definitely a lightning rod to sort of have a good concrete conversation about who Varys is. That he's, he came from nothing and now he's in King's Landing and he's using his influence and he is getting revenge. But like, out of all the things he gets revenge for, he just wants to get revenge for his Franks and Berries. Like,
He also makes a really good comment there about how much he despises magic and all those who practice it too,
Right.
which I find interesting.
Which actually
Absolutely.
could explain
He
a
says
little
that's
bit.
why I helped out against the
Friendly
Stannis
or
Baratheon
Stannis.
and his Red
Mhm.
Priestess.
I actually that goes a little bit to explain maybe as well why there are so few open magic users in Westeros. I mean, there are, don't get me wrong, some of them, but not near as much as we'd see on the mainland. And maybe that's one of them. Maybe Varys kind of nips those in the bud.
Could be. Yeah, he's got so many little spies and people there, and if he can have some random sorcerer from, I don't know, he looks maybe late 40s to early 50s. If we're playing this game, that maybe he can still find this sorcerer after 40 years. That, yeah, absolutely. Maybe he has different people go after different magic users throughout Westeros. Interesting. Interesting take. Yeah, I thought the same thing. Hearing that story and looking at that crate, I couldn't remember what was in the crate when he opens it. And at first I thought it would be like the bones of the sorcerer or a dead body, but the sorcerer's alive. And I think his
Mhm.
like mouth is sewn shut or something in there to make sure he's not speaking. And so yeah, whoever caught him did him dirty and sent him off to Varys, either under Varys's direction or this person just did. Probably under Varys' direction, because Varys doesn't look shocked. He expects to see the sorcerer in the box when he finally opens the crate. He's like, "Hello, old friend." And the person, I don't know if the sorcerer recognizes him or knows who he is, but he's trying to muffled scream at him. But yeah, I think Tyrion has the comment. He goes, "Good heavens, the sorcerer!" Like as a reference to this is the guy from the story you just said. And yeah, Varys has the line. He's like, "Hello, old friend." So I think that is who that is supposed to be. And yeah, just perfect timing that that's the story he happens to tell him. So
also to explain, the level of Varys's spiders is in previous scenes, he was going to poison Daenerys's wine, and he just had some random person like
right,
deliver the pardon, and a different random person poison wine. So it's completely believable that he would have other assassins or kidnappers in other places. Anyway,
yeah.
Steven, did you have any other points on this episode, or who are we staying with Steven?
Yeah, I had one more point on this episode. And that was, oh my god, what was it? I can't remember now. Daenerys. Daenerys actually was my other point, because we get the fruition of what she was planning at the previous episode. And it is, like I said, it is a clever, it is smart, it's ruthless, and I actually, I'm not a Daenerys fan. I am a fan of what she does here. And getting back to what we said in the previous episode, she had purchased the entire offensive and defensive capabilities of the city she was in, basically. I have no idea why one person was able to sell the entire defensive capabilities, but they were. I mean, it was insane. And they didn't think about this because dragon, ooh, not thinking that. I'm sure Daenerys thought, my dragons are hard to control. I can barely control them sometimes. This guy's going to have a lot of trouble. These Unsullied are absolutely, perfectly loyal. Once I get them, once I own the military of this city, and they have no defense or recourse to me owning the military of their city, I'm just going to turn the military on them. And that's exactly what she does. Anyone holding a whip or the masters gets killed. Don't hurt any of the babies, but there is a slaughter that ensues as the Unsullied. It doesn't go into as much detail as you'd expect a Game of Thrones episode to do, but the Unsullied go around and slaughter everyone. And I think that they probably don't show the slaughter as detailed as you'd expect, specifically because they're trying to make Daenerys look nice. I think that you can't order a slaughter of... I don't care if they were the masters. You can't order a slaughter of a civilian populace in total and not have something kind of screwy wrong. But she does do it. It works. And she ends up with 8,000 of those.
8,000.
8,000. And then she actually also tells the dragon, burn the chief slaveholder dude. And the dragon does it. And you know what? In most cases, I would go, and I was conflicted about this. I was watching this and I go, well, she broke a deal. And this was like something she had agreed to. This is something she said she would do. The guy's also a slave trader. Maybe he deserves to burn. Who am I to say at this point? And he burns.
Also, interestingly, like, the slave trader, she confirmed with the slave trader that, like, she owned the Unsullied, but the slave trader never confirmed that he had control over the dragon. Like, the dragon didn't understand where the loyalty switched. Anyway, that's all I had.
I was just saying too, there's definitely a moment that we all kind of alluded to happening there. Like I wrote down like just an oh snap moment there that happened of like when Daenerys finally reveals that she can understand and speak Valyrian there to everyone, and then it's just like they all just kind of turn and look like, oh my goodness here, and it's just she says the Jakaris thing there, and then the dragon burns the guy there. Which I will mention too, this scene here, I wrote down the music in this scene. Absolutely fantastic.
On fire?
Pretty much.
On fire like Krasnus.
The only note that I put for like oh snap was like in a cut where you see Daenerys, you also see her two lieutenants behind her, and you see them just like, oh shit, like it's on. Like, and I don't know if it's just like if it's intentional or if it's just an acting slip where these people are like, fuck yeah.
So I'm curious about that because I didn't notice them back there, Jorah and Sir Barristan. Did they seem like they were aware this was going to happen, or did
they were? I get the general feeling on their face was like they were excited because they were like, oh, this is so much better than we expected. Like they are a conduit for the viewer, which is like they are a casual observer to this, and they firsthand, like their primary goal is to defend and counsel the queen. But as soon as they see that shit's going sideways, I'm sure they both just draw their swords, defended Daenerys, and waited for shit to calm down.
You could say that they're upset that she didn't draft a quarterback in the first, but Daenerys knows she drafted Tom Brady in the 7th.
I think it's the 6th round, 196th pick.
I thought it was the 7th.
There's
Things that don't matter.
Yeah.
things that don't matter, Gary. There's this moment, I'm really caught trying to understand in this scene, knowing what's going to happen when you first see this. When do people have the realization? Because like we as an audience get it, like you said, when that music swells and when Daenerys turns and has the dramatic camera cinematography. That's when we know. When do the characters realize, oh snap, I'm screwed? Because the Krasnus guy is kind of fighting with the dragon, like, oh, I can't control the tell the woman how to control her beast or whatever. And then she's trying to understand if she does truly own the Unsullied. She says, Unsullied, move forward, halt. Like she's giving them orders in Valyrian to like understand if they know what to move. If that was me, that would be the point where I'd be like, oh shit, she's speaking Valyrian. All the crap I've said, she understood that. And like at that moment I would realize I'm screwed. But I was trying to find out like when is he fully realizing, because he's just standing there holding the dragon umbrella until at the last minute the dragon says, she says Dracarys, and he looks up and it burns him. Like, if I can't control this thing, and I'm realizing as this lady's looking at me talking that she does speak Valyrian, and she has this whole small monologue about, it's my mother tongue, I'm from old Valyria. It's like, at that point, I would start screaming to the Unsullied, kill her, like, do something, somebody. It's probably too late, but it's this interesting back and forth where, yeah, I think that, now that we're talking about it, I think she planned to do this from the beginning. Because even when she says, like we said, when she proposes, I'm going to sell my dragon, she would never part with her dragon. And so I think that she has a look at one part in that scene where she looks sad, just handing the dragon to him and turns and walks away as the dragon's like, wah, wah. But I don't think it's sad because she thinks she's giving him away. She's just sad to hear the dragon think that that's what's happening, I think. I was just, the whole realization between the dragon thinking it's going away, but like Gary said, it doesn't know that there's a transition there where the loyalties lie. Daenerys knowing she has, the royal flush in her hand and just sitting back waiting for everyone else to bid all their life away. And then the Krasnus and the Masters just thinking, because he's like doing a whole monologue too about this will be a great deal, and after the Unsullied have children of their own, you can send back the boys to me, and this will be a great bargain for us for many years. Like, he's not even contemplating, like Steven just said very astutely, I just gave you all of my cards. So it's this, yeah, it's a very poor move on their part, and very smart how Daenerys ruthlessly goes for the throat in this.
You were talking about when people knew, and obviously he is the last to know. Very visibly, he is the last to know. But playing devil's advocate to why it wouldn't have raised a red flag. The things that she said could have been, I don't know, phrases that Missandra taught her the night before. Like, it was two simple phrases: step forward, halt. Like,
I'll give you that.
I mean, that's sort of a devil's advocate. However, I think as soon as she goes into a long monologue of like, obviously she knows the words slave, whip holder, like all these other things, like everyone else, like her cohorts, Sir Barristan and they probably don't know that she speaks Valyrian at all. Like, I don't think there's been any sign that they know that she can speak High Valyrian. Maybe Barristan Selmy probably knew that most Targaryens are taught High Valyrian, but she was a baby when she was taken away from King's Landing, so he wouldn't know that. So that's sort of when they know, but I don't know. It's just a badass scene, and yeah, it just sort of comes down to everyone sort of learns about it in stages, and obviously the people holding the whips, they're just sort of confused because they're like, I just clocked in like 5 minutes ago. Like, I'm not management.
And I guess I'm gonna pivot exactly, and I'm glad you said the words. It's an awesome scene, because I wanted to bring up as well. Like I had said this before, and no one really hit on it. I'm wondering if this really isn't that big a deal for you guys. She slaughters a lot of people, a lot of civilians. She kills a lot of people, not just the whip holders, not just the main dude. She says the masters. The masters are in fact a class of people there, and
Mhm.
she slaughters them to a man, leaving only the children alive.
I think that's
I
some foreshadowing to some later conversations where the masters come back up. I think so, but yes, I think that's maybe something that if you're a casual viewer and haven't read the books or hadn't, just sort of put your dumb TV mind on, like you didn't catch the masters are a class of people. You're just thinking about the people you immediately can see on screen, which is the middle manager holding a whip who clocked in and just was showing off. Maybe he's gonna get a promotion tomorrow.
I
So
was
anyway,
I was gonna echo that too, there, Gary. Of like the way the show presents it, of like the masters aren't really seen as a class, a full class of people. It's these people here in the arena where they're Unsullied or quote trained or whatever. It's not really until later that you can make the connection that, oh yeah, the masters are a full group of people, possibly. But also too, this goes into some of the putting a pin basically in this part here of the discussion of Danny's character. That's that. I'll stop there.
I think it's in the previous episode. The masters do unspeakable things to the servants. Like they said at one point, well, Danny's talking to Missandei, and she's like, "Would you ever lie to me?" And Missandei says, "No, it's a punishable offense if I lie to you." And the people on the walk of punishment have received far worse for far less. And then when Danny's talking to that one person she tries to give water to, he says, "Let me die," essentially, because there's no masters in the grave. Missandei says, it's like they'd rather go die to get away from the masters. So the people who are being put to death, like Gary said, in the TV perception of what we just kind of, as far as we understand it, they deserve probably what they're getting. But true to form too, Steven's got a good point that I didn't even think of. Even if there are 20% of the of age male populace who are assisting or are masters in that terminology to the growth and production of these slaves, the training thereof, and they're all killed, who provides for their families, or who provides for the rest of that society to make up that finance, to make that means for whatever they have? They're dressed in nice clothes, so they may have some sort of societal role or wealth that those groups are no longer earning. So yeah, Astapor is pretty much screwed with the amount of people that were killed in town. Because I think that like towards the end there, when they're that last scene where they're walking out of Astapor, like the city's burning, right? Like even if they don't kill the women, even if they don't kill the children, even if they didn't kill all the male men of that age who were masters, that city is screwed. You basically razed it to the ground. And so it's yeah, and like we're talking about here, took all the defensive items away from that city. So everyone else in Slaver's Bay, there's a couple other cities there that we're going to get introduced to that we can see in the credits, opening scenes. There's other cities in Slaver's Bay. Astapor is pretty much ripe for the taking.
I have to give Steven credit too, because not until he pointed it out, I didn't really think about the fact that clearly these guys must not have to deal with attack much, because as Steven said, they give away all their offensive weapons. If you are ever needing to be concerned about the defense of your city, you would have at least hesitated or thought about it. It doesn't even like occur to him that you have no more defense of your own city. Every city in this age is usually prone to that. So clearly they must not deal with a lot of attacks.
And I guess my one thing that I do want to pivot off of, just for obviously I was talking about where do you draw the line, and I will say I'm all for burning Atlanta, but I get squeamish when you tell me that you're going to kill the population of the state of Georgia.
Wow.
Why is it gotta be Georgia? Why is it gotta be Georgia?
I don't get that reference, but
Oh,
okay.
Gary.
Steven just hates Georgia.
it happens.
I like for reference though, yeah, like in perspective, it would be like the United States military has this really great military with all these trained people, and you just give that away. Like, holy crap, yeah, that's terrible deal. Even if you think you're getting, a dragon, one dragon cannot protect your entire city. Maybe when it's full grown, however long it takes to grow the dragon. I don't know if Krasnus knows if there's only 3 dragons in existence. This is the first he's ever met. Yeah, he may be a cruel, abusive businessman, but he is not a shrewd or smart businessman. Interesting. Okay. All we talked about was that one scene of the last episode. We're done.
It was a hell of a scene.
Steven, did you have anything else in this episode?
No, those were my two scenes.
Nick, did you have any other scenes?
The scenes that I wrote down were the ones in the Sept of Baelor with Marjorie and Joffrey were the scenes that I really liked. One, I'm a huge history nerd, especially sci-fi history. And so as he's walking around pointing out, that's where Rhaenyra was burned to death and eaten by her dragon. Like, that's in part of this story that we're probably going to see in Fire and Blood or whatever the prequel series that's coming out is. The Dance of the Dragons is hugely talked about in this History of Westeros book that I have. So that was really cool to making these references to things. I think that the show is allowed to take some liberties at this point because obviously if you're describing or descripting, again, I haven't read the books to my discredit, that you can paint a beautiful picture, but you can't make everything fully colored like you can a picture or actual cinematography scene. What's better about that is you can imagine it in your mind as a reader, but visually, like, you have to make that decision to shoot from the ground looking up through the grated cage to say this is where this dragon was kept. And those little nuanced things I really took to. I thought that was really cool. Even just walking around the Sept, like he said, here's where the Targaryen kids are, were buried, who perished when the Targaryen dynasty finally fell, and my father took over. Not my father. But then also, like, where he's referencing all these different things too, like he's giving this history to Marjorie, again, whether she's actually playing into it or she's just interested to hear it, is yet to be determined. But there's all this little nuance in the Sept about this is were you married here? Olenna is talking to Cersei. Were you married here? Was this where you came from, or did you get married elsewhere? All this other stuff. And the Sept has such a grand history behind it. The Sept of Baelor, actually made by Baelor the First. Actually made by Baelor the First when he was the Targaryen king. And it's this really pious place. I mean, that's where the Light of the Seven comes from, as far as who they are to the rest of the group there. And so I thought that was a really interesting backstory with the history, but also the little, like, the exterior and the beautiful facade, but also the characters. Cersei becomes adamantly aware of how dangerous the Tyrells can be in this scene because Olenna is talking to her, but it kind of felt like she was talking at her rather than to her, because she says something to the akin of, like, I don't know, I think that kings who get their power and abuse them, it doesn't seem right. And Olenna has some line about, like, I don't think those kings deserve that right. And she's kind of talking about Joffrey, who's right there with Marjorie. And so she's kind of like on edge. But then even it's doubled down in the fact that Marjorie's like, oh, come on, Joffrey, let's go meet the masses who are screaming your name in the streets. And Joffrey's clearly like, I don't like common people. And Cersei's obviously terrified that, like, her son's going to get attacked again, because she did, like we talked about just a couple episodes ago. But when they go out, he's met with acclaim because the common folk just like to see the rich people go by. And he kind of like raises his hand at it, like, yeah, I'm Joffrey. Hi, random people. I guess you do like me. And Cersei can see that the Tyrells are kind of getting what they want and being able to manipulate Joffrey to do what they want. And Cersei knows she can't get Joffrey to do what she wants, as she describes later in a scene in this episode with Tywin. She can't get Joffrey to do what she wants. So the fact that somebody else could control the most powerful person in Westeros, debatable, is kind of terrifying to her, that she may lose her son or her son may turn on her, and she knows how dangerous her son can be. All right, I'm done.
I entirely agree with you. Sorry, I'm just doing something here. But anyways, no, I entirely agree with you, and I love like you said, the Queen of Thorns talking basically about Joffrey, and kind of, I think she gets the wrong. I don't say much bad about the Queen of Thorns, but I think she gets something wrong about Cersei here, and I think she believes that Cersei might not like her son as much as she thinks she does. And I think that Cersei really does the Queen of Thrones really does put Cersei on her guard. And I definitely think Marjorie is someone to be on your guard around because she's so damn clever. But I'm not sure it entirely would have happened without that conversation.
I also have a comment there too that you can kind of see on Cersei's face there that her hatred for Marjorie is kind of slowly growing there at that spot where Marjorie's taking Joffrey out there and Cersei's yelling at him, but he doesn't hear or doesn't want to hear his mom calling for him.
Yeah. I definitely think at some point she's just going to blow up at her.
All right. I forgot whose question was that or point was that?
I think I passed it to Nick. Nick, okay. Do you have anything else?
Just a one-liner in that scene. What? I hate you so much. In that scene, Joffrey is talking to Marjorie and says, like, we should have thrown the Targaryens' bodies in the water or whatever, or something like that, and gotten rid of them. They don't deserve to have a place of proper burial in the Sept of all places. And Marjorie, the line I wrote down is, Marjorie wrote, sometimes severity is the price we pay for greatness. I think so many of these families, even the Tyrells, growing strong is like we're a flower, is kind of what the Queen of Thorns alludes to and talks about how stupid that sounds. Even the Tyrells, all of these families sort of borderline on savagery and the severity of how ruthless they're willing to be to get what they want, to get that greatness. And that line really struck out to me, as far as sometimes severity is the price we pay for greatness. Again, foreshadowing, we don't know, but these people have already shown a capacity to be ruthless when the time comes for it. That was all I had for this episode. Like I said, I was just enjoying the episode. There's a lot of interactions.
All right. Amanda, you want to go?
Poor Theon is still writing to meet his sister, and he confesses that the boys that he burned was not the Stark boys. He again does not seem to know where he's going.
The hero of the revolution is very disappointed.
The hero of the revolution seems very interested in that news. But he brings him to a place where he can says, like, we're gonna meet your sister here or whatever. Surprise! Hero of the revolution here, not Theon's hero, that's for sure.
Theon's gonna have a bad time again.
Yep. And then this guy also throws Theon. He says Theon escaped and killed all those men that were chasing him as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorry,
yeah.
Keep cutting in there.
I thought it was interesting also. I mean, honestly, Theon could have just gone on that whole little thing and not confessed anything, and yet he still did. So now that the hero of the revolution knows that the two younger Stark boys are alive, or were at least.
Right.
I will say too, it kind of touched that conversation though. Kind of comes on a lot of what we've talked about with Theon though, of like he doesn't know who he is. Is he a Stark or is he a Greyjoy there? So he even mentions that too, like his true father lost his head at King's Landing there. So because he tried to, he tried to be a Greyjoy there to come attack the Iron Islands, and then that's been a bad idea here. And he confesses that his father was the one who lost his head in King's Landing. So that was kind of a big moment of Theon just kind of letting go somewhat of just all of the pain that he's caused or whatever he feels that he's caused.
Feels he's caused, I'd say.
He straight up says he made the wrong choice. He straight up says, I made the wrong choice. And that is, we've been talking about this entire time, about how Theon has been pulled between these two different worlds, but he made his choice and he can't get away from that choice. And all these decisions keep stemming from them doubling down on that choice continuously. And he finally gets to the end of that rope and goes, I made the wrong decision. I made the wrong choice. And I'm not sure there's any coming back for that for him. But, I mean, the first step is recognizing it, right? And I think there are so many characters in this entire show who refuse to admit that they did any wrong, that they were ever incorrect, or that they were ever misled. And that you could say that about a lot of them. That's not Theon. Theon does not do that. And I have some respect for Theon in and of that way. He was put in a horrible position. He made a choice. He made the wrong choice. He recognized after a time he made the wrong choice. And unfortunately, he's going to pay the consequences for it.
And then some.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just had a really quick...
At some point.
It's got a lot of skin in the game, though.
Oh.
I had a really
these are pretty ballsy jokes.
I had a pretty good thought, not pretty good, but an interesting observation. So now realizing that the hero of the revolution is his stupid name.
Just jealous you didn't think of it.
Is not who he's supposed to be. I'm really curious, what is the context of the initial escape? Did this person tell the other people where we think he went? Because we don't know who this guy is yet, right? I mean, in the context here, we think he's saving Theon, but somehow has brought him back. Yeah, well, that's a good question too. At one point, he kind of says, I don't know. I mean, do we think that he snuck him out? And like we said earlier, the people seem to recognize him. Like, since he brought him back, does this guy work for those people? That they said, we had a highlighted the point that he said, "You little bastard," like that he recognized him. So did he tell those people, hey, this guy got out, or I'm gonna go get that guy, and bring him back to you, or I want you to go get that guy? Because if that's the case, he sent out those 4 or 5 men specifically knowing he's gonna also ride out and kill them to save Theon. So what I had come across, knowing what we know thus far, trying to keep it in the context of only these episodes, this person is twisted enough to send these people out after them with the sheer intent that he's going to go kill them. This is somebody who does not value anyone's life and is willing to manipulate people to a degree of torture. Something I took away from this part. It struck me as interesting. When we watched this the first time, you have no idea and you don't know who people are until the reveal, like we found out at the end of this in this episode. But now, knowing at least a little bit about it and rewatching that bit, I was struck with a sense of, this dude isn't just saving Theon. Even now, knowing that he played at saving Theon, what level of knowledge did these people have, or were told to go get Theon? that this person might have told them to go do so, only knowing that he was going to kill them, struck me as interesting.
Yeah, and I'd say honestly we'd just put a pin in this one because this question's going to be asked and answered here pretty much in the coming episodes with Gary's Hero of the Revolution character there.
What Gary had a highlight really quick about the book. Is this played in the book at all? That there's anything at this point of who this character is, or more giveaways that we've heard from him? Again, at this point, I don't want to delve too deep, but that really struck me as interesting, seeing these interactions with him and other people outside of him and Theon.
I almost want to say I don't think this false escape happens really in the book. I think.
Do we consolidate some characters in the book around this plot line in general? I think there maybe is some characters I'm pretty sure there are some characters consolidated because I think there's some characters consolidated because there's one person who has two different titles moving forward who I think is a different person.
Okay. I was just curious. Like you said, we could put a pin in it if we don't know.
Amanda, do you have anything else for us?
Other interesting conversation, we already touched on it a little bit, was just Cersei and Tywin. When Cersei, she's clearly thinking about her conversation with the Queen of Thorns there, but she mentions to Tywin, like, have you ever thought about, out of all of your sons, when you were so worried about your legacy, that maybe I would be the one to carry it on? And he tells her he doesn't not trust her because she's a woman. It's because she's not as smart as she thinks she is. I'd be interested to hear your guys' take on that, because here's the thing. I don't think he's entirely correct. I think even if she was as smart as she thinks she is, he would not trust her because he doesn't accord that to other women. However, Cersei does think she's a lot wittier than she is. Like, actually, borrow a quote from, I think, in the book later on past this, Tyrion, when he's thinking about it, Cersei always liked to think of herself as Tywin, but really she was more Wildfire.
So when I saw that scene, I started having this thought there about Tywin's children there and I can't quite figure out how to best explain it completely with the characters, but it seems like Tywin's children inhabit a certain characteristic from Tywin himself there. Jaime is more of the battle tactician. I wouldn't say maybe even fully battle tacticianer, but Jaime is more of the battle side of Tywin. Tyrion obviously got the smarts and intelligence of Tywin. And Cersei, I almost want to say it was like either cunning or courage that she kind of picked up, because she's in there basically just saying, hey, straight up to her dad, the most powerful person in Westeros, like, hey, I am the one, I am the one who was listening all this time. I am the one putting family first and everything like that. The other two haven't been doing nearly as much as I have. But I don't think Cersei is nearly as smart or clever as she really thinks she is. She is too I don't know if it's arrogant or brash or basically hot-headed with all of her decisions there. She might see the next thing forward for her decision, but she's not playing the long game there. She's only really a lot of times playing the short game with all of the stuff that she does.
Completely agree, and I think that even Tywin says it while they're there, that you think you're smarter than you are. She has Dunning-Kruger going on. She thinks she is so clever, so smart, and she's not. She's average clever and average smart. I mean, and maybe that's smarter than everyone else in the land. That doesn't make her in and of itself a genius like she thinks she is. And then, I guess even further from that, in that same conversation, oh, you know what? I'll wait on this comment because it'll take the conversation a little bit differently. So I'll wait for everyone else to finish this portion.
My take on it is, yes, she is playing the short game. Yes, I agree. I don't think she's as smart as she thinks she is compared to some of these other people. Tywin has the experience from being older, having delved with multiple different engagements, either combatively or politically. And like you talked about Tyrion and Jaime, everyone else. I don't think she's as smart as she thinks she is, but the danger in there, I can't remember. I was trying to think what the verb is. He said, like, I don't trust you, or the thing about you, I don't blank. I can't remember what the verb is. But I think the thing that he doesn't trust, or what makes her dangerous, is that she's playing the short game. Like, playing the long game, okay, you win this hand, I'm going to let you win this battle, but I will win the war. Whereas Cersei, if she doesn't perceive she's winning, she will go low and she will kill you and gut you in your sleep. Case in point, Tyrion has had multiple interactions with Varys because Varys has said, like, she's the one who tried to kill you or had people try to kill you at the Battle of Blackwater. No, she's willing to take you out if you're perceived as a threat. And so I think that he is not intimidated by her cunning. He's more concerned. He doesn't want to give her a position of power or play into her perception that she's worthwhile, because he considers her dangerous, because he knows that she's his daughter. He knows he's dangerous, just like inheriting these other traits like you talked about, folks, that he knows she would be just as dangerous and cutthroat, because that's what's going to happen. Yeah, I want to put a pin in where I was just about to go with this conversation too, because there's something that I saw in that moment, in that conversation, where she's asking, what are you going to do to secure Jaime back? And he says, whatever I can. And he's writing out all these papers and pages and political intrigue. He's already making moves, even though it doesn't seem like he is, because to her it's action, short game. It's not working, we got to do something else. Whereas he's playing the long game. He's much more dangerous with what he's doing, because it's through subterfuge, it's through manipulation, it's through coercion. And so there's all these other things he's doing that make him far more cunning. Maybe not as dangerous as someone who's outright violent, but definitely someone who is to be feared. That was my take on that.
If anyone else doesn't have another comment on this, I'll get back to what I was going to say. And it's a little bit of a move off of what we're talking about. And it's part of this conversation, though, and exactly what Nick was talking about when he said, what did you do? I mean, what are you doing to secure Jaime? I mean, and he turns to her and goes, what did I do to secure your brother? And obviously talking about Tyrion, and so you started a war. And that got me thinking, in their mind, and maybe in reality, Catelyn Stark, again, capturing Tyrion, really does start all this off. That starts the war. Tyrion went to war specifically for that. I mean, I perceive him having other goals and other motives and etc., but that's an explicit statement that if she hadn't done that back way when, none of this would have happened. And you guys might have talked about it on the first season of the podcast. I wasn't on that, so I didn't get to hear it. But that is the catalyst for everything that has happened as well. There are other catalysts that do happen, but in terms of a domino effect, if that domino's not there, maybe everything else doesn't start to fall.
Very true. Very true. Do you have anything else, Amanda?
I think that's it. We talked about other things.
Okay. Who hasn't gone quite yet? Gary, did you go?
I don't have anything else for this episode.
Okay. Nick?
Just checking his list of puns to see if he missed any.
I
wrote down a couple different. I've got more. But no, I wrote down all my notes for these episodes on my phone. I was looking at. I don't believe I had more, but again, like I said, I was just enjoying it. Like, seeing these different character stories develop is really interesting. We're at. You always think you're at a point now where it's like something has to give. One of the kings has to die, or somebody has to make some new development, and then it just goes south, and you're like, what the frat, and it's never ending, and it's just building crescendo. It's interesting to watch.
All right, Steven, did you have anything else?
Do you, before I say anything, do you have any more points?
I've got two more
I-
to kind of touch
All right,
on.
those might be the same 2 points that I have, so you
Okay.
can go.
Gonna quickly actually throw out this one minor thing too here. We are reintroduced to Beric Dondarrion at the end of the episode,
Yay.
played by a new actor. He was completely different in his very first introduction in season 1.
When was he introduced in season 1? I don't even
In
remember
season
that.
1, when Ned is on the throne giving out orders to different people, he instructs Beric Dondarrion to go hunt down Gregor Clegane and bring him to court for trial. They're basically, because Gregor's out burning and pillaging the lands, the farmlands there, basically.
Mummers Ford or whatever they mentioned.
Yeah. It's a very quick. You only see him for 2 seconds. He looks around. He says, "Lord Beric Dondarrion, I appoint you to go do this in the name of the king." You see him for like 2 seconds, and now here he is again. But
Yeah.
looking a little different, almost like he's played by somebody else.
Who's also running.
Did he have both eyes originally, or is the loss of an eye something new?
He had both eyes in the beginning.
Interesting.
I think it explains how we lost him maybe in the next couple episodes.
Yes. The first major point I should say I wanted to touch on was, did we touch on the conversation between Marjorie and Sansa there? Okay.
Oh, between Marjorie and Sansa,
No.
Okay.
Sansa.
Joffrey and Sons. Joffrey
Yeah.
and Marjorie.
So
Yeah.
Marjorie goes down to meet Sansa, who's out praying in some random location at King's Landing there. And they have this kind of like, it seems like a bonding conversation, but I kind of wanted to throw it out to the group, because it seems like it's kind of giving Sansa hope, where she suggests that Sansa should marry, oh my goodness, I
Loras.
just blanked on this, Loras.
Loras Tyrell.
Yep. So I'm kind of just throwing this out there here. Do we kind of think that this is Marjorie playing her chess pieces around there, or is it more kind of, I mean, I don't think it's Marjorie obviously being honest here, really, with what she's trying to do here. But go for it.
I completely agree. I don't think she's honest at all. I think that this is a chess piece move, and I think that that's given away by when Sansa goes, "Oh, I'm just a stupid girl," and Marjorie, who obviously thinks that Sansa's a little, at least naive, if not straight up dumb. All the Tyrells think that of her. And she says, "Oh, no, don't say that about yourself," which is something you say to someone when you think they're stupid. And so she's definitely playing that game.
I was going to say, is this a follow-up conversation between, I think it comes after the conversation between Varys and the Queen of Thorns, where Varys points out that she is the key to the north. So that's the Tyrells sort of reorganizing the map, because if one Tyrell is married to the king in the south and the other Tyrell is the Lord of the North, like, they've just expanded their reach, and you know, the reach. Nick's making
clever.
puns. Anyway, so I think that's really where it came from. Is also, like, I'd like to think that maybe Marjorie just wants to get Sansa out of there, because I think as long as Sansa is in the capital, Sansa is a distraction from, or a possible distraction, as I mentioned in previous episodes, to her ultimate plan of understanding the pieces on the board. Sansa is kind of an extra piece on the board that doesn't really play into her game, but if she's at Highgarden, or the perceived, like, heiress of the North, like, that's a value, and that's the best place to put her on the board. So anyway, that's all I had.
I feel like it might be, we had the conversation before about, is Marjorie doing these for multiple reasons, and I think it's the same. I felt like it was the same thing. I do think Marjorie doesn't want Sansa to be in danger or get hurt. This removes her from that. It puts her safely in the reach of Highgarden, who can then have that strategic move. It takes away the distraction from Joffrey, who is still he is not ignoring Sansa entirely. Thinks he can he can just torture his little plaything.
Mm-hmm.
It also gets her to safety. It moves her into their strategic reach. It obliges Varys, so then they can call in that favor later on too. Like, there's so many different reasons why moving Sansa for them is such a good idea.
And a damaged Sansa is not worth anything to them.
And to just say that as we previously mentioned, the conversation between the Queen of Thorns and Varys, this is a move to consolidate their power in the north as well, because she will be if Robb dies, she is the heir apparent to the north, and I think at least, right?
As far as anyone knows, the younger
that's
two
what I
brothers
thought.
are dead. So she and then Arya is still kind of a mystery. Like, so she's the only known heir other than technically besides Robb or his mother, who could become the Lady Heiress of Winterfell, just based on the honor they hold for Ned. Like, they wouldn't kick her out, for a couple weeks.
Sure.
Heroine of the revolution.
And the last thing is just one more reason to add to everyone's good reasons already, is getting a spare piece off the board. I mean, they're simplifying the solution here. They don't want a third party. They don't want someone who has separate motives. Even if they're not like bad motives per se, there's still something that they might not be able to fully control. You get Sansa off the board, and you have a very strong knowledge of what is happening there.
Yeah. I was just going to agree with all the points you all were making. I think that it is a little bit of both. Like, she wants to be kind to her. I genuinely bought when she said, Sansa, I do want you and I to be friends. Like, that seems sincere to me. But absolutely, that scene with Sansa and Marjorie comes right after we see Varys and Elena walking off together. Instantly, Elena said something to Sansa and said, let's go do this, and you need to put this idea in her head. And she's like, okay, grandmother. And, they're in cahoots to know how to try and manipulate the other people on the board. So then she immediately went to go find Sansa, and knew enough to know what she's going to say to her, or even how Sansa would reply would be too telling. So she sends the guards away. Like, there's more there than something innocent. Like, she knows how that would be perceived. And so, yeah, I think that it's both that she is sincere when she cares at least enough about Sansa's well-being, but in the sense, too, that she wants to use her for the weight that maybe even Sansa doesn't know she has.
I guess I didn't even think about the guards being gone for the whole political nature. I thought, at surface level, it was just she didn't feel as if she was going to get an honest conversation out of Sansa if there were Lannister men around. Like, she wanted some semblance or safety. She wanted to give her a place where she felt like Sansa could, and it's not anywhere in the castle. Is very much like a scene that is like in a garden and in an open area that like doesn't have extra ears. Anyway, that's all I have.
All right, and then the final thing that I have here is basically written down as "Rest in peace, Jeor Mormont." There, he gets taken out there at Craster's Keep along with Craster, which the world is much better with him gone as well. With Craster gone.
Hey!
Craster
was
King.
a godly man.
Yeah.
Oh my.
So a thought I just had that kind of came up here while I was thinking about this whole segment there is this is kind of the ultimate kind of endpoint for the Night's Watch there when you think about it. Like, for years and years, they've kind of slowly gone down with their recruitment of men and stuff like that, to the point where they've had to start recruiting these basically the criminal society, the criminal element of society here. So at some point in time, they got to the tipping point here where there was just too much crime and not enough honorable people there to, when they got into a situation like this where hope is kind of lost and everything like that, everyone turns and looks and says, hey, this is the easier route to do. Let's just stay here and just kill the inhabitant here. So I think this is ultimately like just an unfortunate end to Gior for just kind of the circumstances that kind of befell the Night's Watch there in general.
Even knowing as much as you know now, do you think that they still didn't plan on trying to go back to the wall and like go back to the status quo at some point?
They mentioned they were going to try and make it back to the wall there, but they just had Gior didn't want to travel anymore because they still had some injured men that were slowing them down.
Strength.
Who needed their strength, yes, obviously. So, and then they were probably too worried that whatever they just got done fighting was still coming after them.
Mm-hmm.
The one individual who was burned and now his watch has ended, they made the comment too, like, I didn't know a broken foot could kill a man. And then they comment, no, it was the fact that he hadn't eaten anything in days. You know, yeah, literally not just trying to get their strength back from fatigue, but like they didn't eat anything probably for the last couple of days while they've been there. And to be allowed to enjoy a place to stay and a roof over your head outside, away from the cold of being outdoors at Craster's, you needed to, like, you know, they were joking about, I've never knew how much shoveling was involved and all this kind of stuff where they're doing yard work for Craster, someone that clearly they despise, and rightfully so. And so they're not getting anything back for it other than just a place to sleep. And so that resentment builds up and that embitterment where this is sort of what came from that, unfortunately. Yeah, I agree with that it was, it seemed odd, like if Gior knew that this was going south, why not just try to get his folks out of there to avoid any, you know, bloodshed in the hopes that they'd make it back. But it was sad to see Gior's story end that way.
Mm-hmm. Man had dedicated his life to the Night's Watch.
Yes.
Right.
I want to point out the irony in your statement that you said that the situation was going south. They were not, in fact, going south. They couldn't go south. That would have been better.
Boom! Mic drop.
Nice.
But oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. I was just gonna say. I'll come back. I'll come back to it. You do yours.
Okay. I do think that this was coming back. This is a little bit of the Night's Watch's chickens come to roost. This is a Faustian bargain they made with a man that was obviously evil. Like, I know Craster is one of Gary's favorite characters. He likes. Oh no, I used to. Okay, never mind. I understand.
I'm just laughing because as soon as you said it, I was like, Gary's gonna pitch a fit about Fausti and Bat or whatever. And as soon as you turned, he was like,
Faustian bargain. But
I'm with you. I got it.
It once you make these sorts of deals with these sorts of people, those are going to come back and bite you. And they're going to come back and bite you not when you are best or at your greatest. They're going to come back when you are at this point, when you're at your lowest. And you can say that, I guess, I don't have that much knowledge of the Night's Watch before this and what led to the decline and atrophy of the Night's Watch. Atrophy. Another word there, buddy.
I knew it, atrophy. Isn't that where you lose your leg?
No.
That's amputation.
But
ephemeral.
I don't know exactly. I don't know why the Night's Watch is at the position that it is in, and for that reason, I can't say exactly how necessary this bargain was with Craster. But I don't see how any good could have come from it. And this type of especially with them knowing that they were dealing with the White Walkers. How in the name of all that is anything can you make a bargain with someone who is actively working with the Night Walkers? Ice Walkers, sorry.
White Walkers.
White Walkers. There's some type of walker.
You can pull out $530 words. You can't remember White Walker. White, a color. Walking, something people do with their feet.
Says the guy
Stuck
who
on that, Mr. Dictionary.
If it had 4 syllables, he'd remember it.
says the guy who referred to the dude as Carl Stark.
Carl.
Car Stark.
Or Stark, whatever.
In Doyle,
Even
Montana.
the Lord of the Dictionary.
Yeah. Anyway, we can go back to the original point, and I've forgotten what it was.
Just rest in peace, Jor Mormont there. That was basically
Yeah.
Okay.
He's Stuart Mormont.
I had a quick note about you had mentioned the honorable people are no more, and now it's more and more the thieves and murderers who have come to Castle Black. I think that Gior and more of the older people are those people who saw the Night's Watch as the honorable people, or like that they're a group of people who watch each other as brothers, and it's the brotherhood that really drew Jon Snow to the interest of it. And that's sort of what it has been for literally thousands of years. The Brotherhood has been around for forever, since there was a wall to guard. And yeah, more and more you're just getting these thieves, or they need more men. Like Gior had said multiple times, he needs more men for the Night's Watch, and sent that down to King's Landing. And that one guy, I forget his name though, but who went down and picked up Arya and Gendry and all these people. They're just finding anyone they can to be Night's Watch, who aren't maybe necessarily brothers, who aren't necessarily of military potential even. And yeah, you end up with people who are quicker to use other traits like backhandedness or manipulation or deceit, rather than this is something that I should aspire to. It's what can this do for me? And in that situation there where you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, do you go outside and face the White Walkers with no strength, or do you try and stay at this horrible, horrible place with this terrible host and hope for the best? And I think this is kind of where Gior had led his men to, and unfortunately led them to their doom.
And I think that maybe this is even a wider conversation that we could have about this, and how much of these recruitment problems come from the fact that the Night's Watch's rules are absolute stupidity. Just it was inevitable that this was going to happen, because there's no way that you can consistently get a good class of people in when you take away literally all their liberties.
Poor marketing.
Yeah, poor marketing. Poor marketing.
Agreed.
Got to
Poor
get
marketing.
your face out there. But I mean, you can be an elite class of warrior and still have on anything else, really. It's the way that they are and the credo that they take. No woman, no sexual relations, no etc. etc. It's God, no wonder no one wants to be there. Why would you want to? It's insane.
Is question, what do you all think it's an age thing? Like all of the people who revolted, that young guy, I don't know what his name is, who started this, questioning Craster, they're all sort of younger, like John's age, whereas you have Corran Halfhand and Benjen Stark, as far as we know of his character, and Gior are all older individuals. So is it something that's as simple as just different generations?
I don't know. At the same time, you've got Jon Snow himself and Samwell Tarly, and they're all doing a good job of it. So who knows?
I don't think so. I think that this is and I'm trying to remember the term for it, and I'm not going to.
Has it got 5 syllables or more?
It does not have 5 syllables or more. It's people will know this. It's a picture of an airplane, a bomber, a World War II bomber, and it has specifically little red dots on the plane showing where the bullets went through the plane, and basically saying, "Oh, a plane can survive all this stuff. We got to armor these portions, blah blah." But what it's basically saying is that what we are seeing is the end result of something, and those old people that survive are surviving for a reason. They're not a different per se class from old and young. These are the only old people that will survive. The other young ones are going to die. So it will winnow out all those people, all those young people. What the hell is that?
All right. Anyone have anything else they want to touch on? Good to go. Everyone looks like they're good here. All right. So then for next time here, we will be watching episode 5 and episode 6. Episode 5 is titled Kissed by Fire. Episode 6 is titled The Climb. Yes.
Is that the middle episode too
What do you mean?
of the season? Like how you said episode 9 is usually the one that where something crazy happens. Is episode 6 the one in the middle of the season?
I'm still not even for sure what you're referencing there, but episode 5
Never
and
mind.
6, yes, are technically in the middle of a 10-episode season. Anyways, so thanks everyone for having a good time listening to us. Hope you all have a good one.
Everybody.
Bye.